Welcome to the Explainer. You know, there are some football matches that just feel like a showcase of pure talent, and then there are matches that feel like an epic clash of ideas. Portugal versus Croatia? That absolutely belongs in the second category. We're not just looking at who has the better superstars on the pitch today, we're diving into a really fascinating study of two completely opposing footballing philosophies. So let's just jump right into it.
What we've got here is a brilliant dichotomy. On one hand, you have Portugal's master plan. They want speed, relentless pressure, and they genuinely thrive when the game gets open, chaotic, and totally unpredictable. But then you look at Croatia, and it is the exact opposite. Their entire philosophy is built on control, possession, and ultimate patience. They want to slow everything down until every single pass happens exactly on their rhythm. It is quite literally a battle of fire and ice.
Part 1. The Sword, Portugal's Speed and Pressure.
When you really analyze Portugal, their biggest weapon isn't just one guy. It's their sheer depth of options and this intense, suffocating high press. They consistently rank as one of the absolute best teams in Europe at winning the ball high up the pitch. And the logic here is super simple, right? The closer you steal the ball to your opponent's goal, the fewer passes you actually need to create a lethal scoring chance. They don't just want possession, they want to rip it away from you in the most dangerous areas possible.
When you see it in action, it's honestly like watching a trap snap shut. Step 1. The striker immediately cuts off that passing lane straight into the midfield. Step 2. The wingers aggressively close down the fullbacks, totally eliminating those wide escape routes. Suddenly, the opponent is boxed in. And then, Step 3. Attack the mistake. Portugal isn't pressing just to defend. They're doing it to force an immediate panicked error. One bad pass, and boom, it's instantly a scoring opportunity.
Now he might be wondering, what happens if a team actually manages to escape that initial trap? Well, that just triggers Portugal's second major weapon, wide attacks. Since Croatia loves to defend in this really compact, tight shape, Portugal will relentlessly use the full width of the pitch to pull them apart. By stretching the play as wide as humanly possible, they isolate defenders on the wings. This forces the defense to spread out, which magically creates all this beautiful space right in the center for devastating cutbacks, low crosses, and late midfield runners to just crash the box.
But, and this is a huge but, all that aggressive pressing demands a massive amount of energy. It inherently stretches out Portugal's own midfield. Think about it. If Croatia plays right through that furious first wave of pressure, Portugal's fullbacks are already caught way high up the pitch. That leaves some incredibly dangerous vulnerabilities and wide open spaces behind them. And wouldn't you know it, those spaces are exactly what Croatia is hunting for.
Which brings us to Part 2, the shield and metronome, Croatia's patience and control.
To really understand Croatia, we actually need to take a breath and slow our own pace down. Everything they do revolves around freezing the game, taking the emotion completely out of it, and establishing absolute control of the midfield. It all boils down to one defining mantra: every pass has a purpose. I really want you to focus on that. Croatia isn't just holding on to the ball to pad their stats or look pretty. Every single touch is a calculated provocation.
The genius behind those endless passing sequences is just pure cause and effect logic. First, they circulate the ball to actively bait the opponent into pressing them. By drawing that pressure in, they force structural gaps to open up in the defense. And once those gaps appear, that's Step 3. Exploit those open spaces. They are literally using the ball as bait. Where Portugal wants emotion and chaos, Croatia wants cold, calculated sequences.
And you know, this intelligence totally extends to when they don't have the ball too. Contrast this directly with Portugal. When Croatia loses possession, they don't sprint around like maniacs trying to win it back in 3 seconds. Instead, they intelligently delay. One guy steps up just to slow the counterattack, another blocks the most dangerous passing lane, and the rest of the team uses those precious few seconds to recover their defensive shape. They know the easiest way to concede is in transition, so they absolutely refuse to give you one.
Still, nobody is invincible. Croatia has a pretty fundamental vulnerability: stamina. Maintaining 90 minutes of high intensity against Portugal's youthful energy is a massively tall order, especially with an experienced, which, let's be honest, is just a polite way of saying older, midfield. Late in the game, as fatigue sets in, the physical distances between those Croatian players are going to get just a little bit larger. And as we just talked about, giving Portugal even a fraction of extra space is a deadly mistake.
Part 3. The micro battle, Modric versus Portugal's shield.
So with these two grand philosophies totally colliding, the whole match essentially distills down to one specific patch of grass. Every great game pivots on a single tactical duel, and this is ours. It leads to one defining question: can Portugal's shield actually stop Luka Modric?
We are talking about one of football's absolute greatest conductors, a guy who sees passing lanes before anyone else in the stadium even realizes they're there. The stakes here are just massive. Portugal's defensive midfielder has one job. Not necessarily to tackle him every time, but to relentlessly limit his options and make his life miserable.
The logic of this duel is totally absolute. If Modric gets the ball, gets to turn, and dictates the play, Croatia completely bypasses Portugal's press. If that happens, Croatia sets the tempo and rules the game. But what if they shut him down? If Portugal cuts off those passing lanes, Croatia is forced to play long balls. The game instantly blows wide open, and it turns into the exact chaotic track meet that Portugal is begging for. It literally is that simple, and it's absolutely crucial.
Part 4. The logical prediction.
All right, so having broken down the sword of Portugal, the shield of Croatia, and that massive midfield micro-battle, let's pull all this tactical analysis together. Let's look at the balance of the full 90 minutes. For Portugal, you've got crazy depth, blistering pace, wide attacks, deadly transitions, and massive early intensity. For Croatia, you're looking at unmatched experience, extreme patience, absolute midfield control, and elite late-game management. Logically, you can fully expect the first 20 minutes to totally belong to Portugal. They're going to press hard and dominate the territory. But in tournament football, survival usually favors the team with more solutions. If Croatia survives that early storm, the scales start to tip.
That being said, when we weigh all these variables together, the logic really points to a very specific outcome, 2-1 in favor of Portugal. Look, while Croatia's path to victory requires extreme, almost perfect discipline and control, Portugal just simply has more ways to actually win. They can hurt you in rapid transitions, they can hurt you out wide, or they can crush you on set pieces. Ultimately, in a really tight, highly tactical game like this, Portugal's sheer squad depth and attacking flexibility gives them the ultimate edge.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Which philosophy is actually going to win out? Fire or ice? Speed or control? As we've seen throughout this whole breakdown, football is never just random chaos on a pitch. Every single result has a reason, and every game is governed by its own beautiful underlying logic. Keep these tactics in mind the next time you watch them play, and I promise you'll see the game in a completely different way. Thanks for hanging out with me for this